Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with my review of the Man of Medan for the PS4. So, Man of Medan is made by the same people as Until Dawn, and it's the first game of what they're calling the Dark Pictures Anthology. There's supposed to be 8 titles in all, and the third, House of Ashes, is coming out later this month. Like Until Dawn, this was another game that I'd wanted for a while. Even after getting a PS4, however, I kept just missing it. Like, it was on sale a few times, but the price kept changing each time I checked, so I never ended up buying it. My mom actually got me this and the next game in the anthology for Christmas last year, so I finally got to play them. So, the setup of Man of Medan is pretty simple. You've got Alex, his nerdy brother Brad, his wealthy girlfriend Julia, and Julia's wisecracking brother Conrad. The 4 of them gather for a diving expedition on the boat of the mysterious Fliss. Some unexpected events lead to them getting stuck on a rundown ship where it quickly becomes clear something horrifying occurred. Surrounding this is the mysterious Curator, who occasionally interrupts the gameplay to discuss what's happening and judge us. Similar kind of to what Dr. Hill did in Until Dawn. If you've played Until Dawn, then you basically know what to expect here. You control each of our 5 protagonists throughout the game, with choices and QTEs altering what happens. You find clues to piece together the backstory, though I like the way these were organized in Until Dawn better, with each one being placed in one of several categories. The traits and relationships both return, but still largely feel about as pointless as they did in Until Dawn, ultimately not really seeming to affect much. In my Until Dawn review, I mentioned how I felt the QTEs were pretty generous. The QTEs in this game are not. You get a lot less time to press the correct button, and while Until Dawn would often give you another chance if you messed up, I found that there were many instances of Man of Medan where a wrong button press would lead to death. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing will entirely depend on you. It did make the QTE segments feel a lot more tense, but I did see a lot of LPers struggling. I didn't mind it personally, but think they could maybe make the QTE difficulty like a setting in the future. The motion control events are now thankfully gone. Taking their place is a sort of rhythm game where you have to press a single button in time with a heartbeat monitor that appears on the bottom of the screen. Unfortunately, there were several problems with this mechanic. Though I believe it has since been patched, many people complained about this being glitched. The flaw that I experienced, however, is that there's no warning for it. An X button prompt just suddenly appears on the screen, and I quickly press it because that's what you're supposed to do in these games, and as I said earlier, you have a lot less time to do so here. This will result in you immediately failing the segment and having to deal with the consequences. Given that the display for these looks like a heart monitor, I think it would have been better to have like a flatline thing or whatever go across the screen before these moments, letting the player know to get ready. Button mashing has also been introduced, and I actually had to come back and write about this while working on the spoiler part of the video. There is a real problem with the button mashing prompts in this game because it's hard to differentiate them from the normal prompts, and by the time you realize you need to smash the button over and over, the timer has nearly run down and you'll probably fail. They also got rid of the thing where you have to swipe the touchpad to turn pages when reading files, replacing it with using the joystick. Unfortunately, I either never got or didn't notice any prompts for this, so I ended up missing a lot of content early on. One thing that does return is the premonition mechanic. Instead of totems, however, you find pictures that give you various glimpses into the future. I still don't really like this mechanic for the same reasons as in Until Dawn. They just don't feel like helpful. For example, one shows an item we really need getting broken, but like, what does this do for us? I was able to recognize when this was in danger of happening, but it's not like the game gives you a choice between going for the item or doing something else. The only thing that matters is if you manage to pass the QTE to grab it, which happens no matter what if you make it that far. They thankfully did away with those awkward recaps from Until Dawn, and the transitions between chapters are now seamless. And once you've beaten the game, you can go back and replay any chapter, but doing this will overwrite your save, so be cautious. There are several other big additions, which have so far featured in all the Dark Pictures games. The first is the Curator's Cut. If you pre-order the game, it's included. Otherwise, it'll be made available as free DLC sometime in the future. I'll put paid DLC there. So, it will be free. You can download it for free if you own the game. This allows you to play through the game and see a different side of things, as you'll often be controlling different characters than you did in the main game, which is called the theatrical cut. This also means that the characters you originally had control of will be making their own choices, though these are often selected as a result of something you did earlier. I found this pretty interesting, as one character did some things I knew would lead to their death, all because I played them adventurously in an earlier scene. There are also 2 multiplayer modes, Shared Story Mode and Movie Night. Shared Story Mode on PS4 and Xbox, as I understand it, they require the use of that console's special subscription service, so PS Plus for PS4 and Xbox Gold for Xbox. And both players, I believe, need to have this. Far as I've heard, though, the PC version doesn't require anything special. So, Shared Story Mode allows you to play through the game with a friend online. One of you will be playing the theatrical cut, while the other will play the Curator's cut at the exact same time. It's a really unique option, but not one I can really say too much about due to having only watched it via Let's Plays. The only drawback I really noticed was that it was possible for one player to end up rushing another depending on how fast they reached certain story checkpoints, and this can interfere with exploring. But overall, it seemed like a really cool experience and allowed for some awesome moments. Movie Night is another multiplayer mode, but it doesn't require any special service to play, and up to 5 people can get in on the action. You and your friends do all need to be in the same room, however. You assign each character to someone, passing the controller around when the game tells you it's another player's turn. This can result in things being a bit uneven, however, as some characters have less playable sections than others, and there's the ever-present risk of death, which can cut anyone's playtime short. So now that we've talked about all the modes and mechanics, how's the game itself? How does it measure up to its predecessor? Admittedly, that's a hard question to answer. My Until Dawn review is much shorter than my previous game reviews, and I mentioned that it was in part because I didn't have a lot to say, something that I warned also applied to this game. The game looks just as good, if not better, but I also think the setting is a little boring. Most of the game takes place on the ship, and that would be fine if it was like a cruise ship or something, but it's not. The actors all do a good job, but most of the characters aren't super memorable. They don't get any real development either, and like those in Until Dawn, many of them feel like they're supposed to be a little unlikable, though I will say no one here was as hateable as Emily. The game was fairly scary, largely in part due to the faster QTEs, increasing the chance of untimely death. There were definitely some really unsettling moments as well, and the overall atmosphere was creepier than Until Dawn for me. I don't recall being terrified, though, at any point while playing. My biggest gripe is that, like Until Dawn and so many other choice-based games, your choices feel like they don't really matter. The game is far too linear, and the setting doesn't really allow for it not to be. This is way more noticeable than it was in Until Dawn, however. Every time our characters reunite, their subsequent dialogue feels less like a conversation and more like a checklist of who's still alive. Okay, so you're alive, you get a line of dialogue. Oftentimes the other characters won't even acknowledge what's been said. Things play out the same, no matter what in most cases, with another character usually stepping in to do what would have been done or say what would have been said by someone who's dead or simply not present. If you try and replay it, it becomes painfully obvious. Like, early on, when you're on the ship, it's possible for you to end up with just 2 characters together. Even if you have everyone together, the game will force everyone else to go away somehow, with one character literally just vanishing and no explanation for this is ever given. That said, for reasons I can't really go into outside of the spoiler section, I did find myself liking certain choice moments. Whether or not you've been paying attention can make all the difference at times, and I enjoyed that. It also makes watching people play in shared story mode a real treat, and I've heard people who dislike the game say playing it with friends makes it better. I do think of the 2 Dark Pictures games that are out right now, this one uses shared story mode the best, and I definitely recommend it for a first playthrough. And like in Until Dawn, there's another M. Night Shyamalan level twist players are torn on, though it personally didn't really bother me. What did bother me was everyone running around this old ship with no shoes. Like, we joked about the characters in the first game getting hypothermia, but these guys are all dying from tetanus after this experience. So the rest of the story isn't great, though. The secrets you can find are kind of overall uninteresting, and most of what happens feels disjointed. That said, all in all, I did enjoy this game. But yeah, I definitely agree with the people who say that it's better with friends, especially if you're, doing shared story mode. Like, that's the best way to experience it. So now that that's all out of the way, let's talk spoilers. Like with Until Dawn, we get another prologue where you can't change what happens. I said before how I don't like that kind of thing, but I'm realizing I can accept it more when it's done in a prologue meant to set up the main story. If nothing else, given the situation, it does make sense that the outcome is inevitable. And I just gotta say, the intro for this game is awesome. I loved the song used in Until Dawn's, and we get a cool remix of it here, and it's set to a incredible cinematic. I've also kind of noticed that the images we see during it seem to be teasers for the next game. And equally awesome is the Curator. He looks great, and his dialogue is enjoyable. And people are really thirsty for him on Tumblr. I'm not gonna say I've favorited a couple hundred GIFs, but I maybe have. And the main game doesn't start out particularly interesting, but given that the point is just to introduce the characters, I won't really complain. I already dislike Julia, and though I relate the most to Brad, I feel like Conrad is probably my favorite of the playable characters. He's entertaining and feels like the most defined character to me. I dislike the whole kidnapping section, but that kind of stuff always bothers me. The villains, though they don't have enough role in the story, despite seeming like somewhat interesting characters, only one of them can actually be saved, which is even worse. I actually got onto the ship with everyone but Brad, and then Fliss got captured due to that stupid issue I mentioned with the heartbeat segment. And Junior would later die because I failed one, though that was partway through the game and decently into the heartbeat game, so I'm not sure if that was due to the glitch that some people kept mentioning or if that was just me messing up. And I had chosen to take that stupid diving gear with me too, so I was this close to saving him. Maincast all lived though. And just to get this out of the way early, I loathe the military endings, though I luckily didn't get them due to saving the distributor cap. It sucks that the military is hiding what they did and would even slaughter or imprison innocent people just to keep anyone else from finding out. And on top of that, why didn't they do something about this years ago? They just left this huge ship filled with bodies and a biological weapon sitting on the ocean where anyone could stumble across it. It seems unlikely they wouldn't be aware it was there, since they kill everyone if you tell them the ship's name. And how can you miss a ship this size? Anyway, regarding the twist, I think it's pretty well done in this. There's so many creepy occurrences, like the coffins and the bodies in them, and they mostly have satisfactory explanations that aren't supernatural. I also love the effect that it has on choices, because I quickly realized I couldn't always trust my eyes. There are times when attacking an assailant might mean hurting a friend, and I thankfully realized early on that hallucinations were happening and the people on the ship had been scared to death. This made Glamour Girl my favorite chapter, because of that end moment where you find yourself at the mercy of this terrifying monster, choosing whether to confront it with no weapon or try and jump. I didn't realize how high up I was just because of the franticness of it all. And I was certain from all that I'd seen that the monster was in my head, so I chose to confront it, revealing that it actually had been Fliss the entire time. This chapter is also one of the best on shared story mode if you don't know what's happening. While one of you is controlling Conrad being chased by the monster, the other will be controlling the person chasing them, who has no idea what's going on, and why Conrad is running away from them and acting all crazy. The hallucinations can cause encounters between characters to be way more interesting and paves the way for some really trippy moments. I did find myself wishing they'd taken advantage of the player's expectations, though. There's a file that you can find that mentions, this ritual thing and sacrificing, a woman of the sea. And, I wish that they'd kind of, made the players and the characters in the game think that maybe they would need to sacrifice her to stop the supernatural thing from, happening. But they didn't go that route. And, yeah, the linearity is still a real disappointment. The same things will, always happen. Near the end of the game, you can end up with a combination of characters going to get the power on, and one will always end up at the switch, while the other will fight Olsen. Even if there's someone who realistically would not stand a chance against him, like Julia or Brad. I technically lost Conrad during this fight due to that issue with the button mashing, but I was actually able to reload, and I'm glad the game didn't autosave after this moment, because you usually can't fix stuff like this, and I will not accept losing a character to a gameplay issue. Anyway, that's it for my Man of Medan review. I'm really looking forward to talking about Little Hope next. Despite its flaws, I think it's overall my favorite of these games so far. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and please leave a comment. Bye!